So, the UK is literally collapsing and you have just about 8 months left to leave the country before it is too late. Especially if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, an investor, and if you have at least some kind of wealth. Hello everybody, it's Ricardo Gorski, founder of tax.one, and in this video I'm going to talk about the UK's downfall and what you can do to not become a victim of even heavier taxation and a slowly but surely degrading quality of life. And in order to understand what's actually happening, we have to wind back to April 2025, where the so-called Nondom status actually got abolished after being in place for 226 years, which attracted global wealth from all over the world and made London specifically the place to be, invest and build in. Under the old classic Nondom status, individuals from all over the world could live in the UK and they were not taxed on foreign sourced income. However, the government of the UK reformed the taxation of non-UK domiciled individuals and now actually imposes taxes for all worldwide income, and in addition to that they also impose a 40% inheritance tax, which means that your worldwide assets will be taxed with 40% before your family and or kids even see it in the first place, which means that almost half of your estate, your wealth that you built your whole life, will go to the HMRC. And in addition to that, there are many more tax increases such as the capital gains tax, but so much more, and that means that the wealthy are not waiting for the tax policies to change. No, they are actively leaving and relocating to low tax jurisdictions, which led to the biggest wealth and millionaire exodus the UK has ever seen. In 2025 alone, approximately 16,500 millionaires have left the UK with their tax residency, which means that the UK is number one in losing wealth. In 2025, you can see that the UK lost even more millionaires like China, or even 10 times more than Russia, which is absolutely insane to think about and compare it with. And that now leads to the most important question: why is it 8 months? What's happening on April 5th, 27? This is actually very interesting because this is going to be the final day of the 26-27 tax year, as the UK's tax calendar year is not classic January 1st until December 31st. No, they like to make it complex, and that is why it is starting on April 5th, 27, and this comes with already confirmed tax reforms such as increased taxation on pensions, investments, properties, business, and also retirement. And no, those taxations are not to tax the rich more. In the UK, everyone is a target by the tax department because every Brit is paying a ridiculous amount of taxes upon receiving income tax, upon spending money, VAT. When you run a business, you pay corporate tax. When you pay yourself a dividend, you're paying dividend tax. When you're selling shares, you're paying capital gains tax. And even if you save money, you pay taxes on your savings. And it seems like the UK government is convinced that the only way to go out of debt is to tax every citizen even more. And the worst part is that the next UK budget is already scheduled and expected in autumn 2026, which means that the cards for a potential wealth and exit tax are again on the table, as we see here, and as we already had discussions about a potential 20% exit charge on wealthy individuals might come in the near future if you want to leave the country and relocate elsewhere. When will we receive further and confirmed information about that? Typically the autumn budget takes place in late November, so a few more weeks or months. But what I can tell you now is that there are already other European countries like Belgium, like Germany, that already have an exit tax or even tax liabilities that can be 10 or more years, such as Norway. But even the UK has a tax trace for up to 10 years for inheritance tax, even if you leave the UK now. But coming back to the topic, it is not about those countries now, it is about the UK. And the pattern here is that once the tax reforms are announced on budget day, then in most cases those are effective immediately, which means that today you can still leave the UK at a £0 exit tax cost. However, this window will close the day it is announced, not before and not after. And yes, I understand that it sounds a little bit like I'm pressuring you, but with good reason. I actually left Germany myself 7 years ago, and I know how hard and how big of a process it is emotionally, but also physically, to start a new chapter in a new country. But shortly after I left Germany, they also implemented an exit tax which saved me so much money that I would have paid if I left a little bit later. Anyway, we get it, we have to leave, but where should you go? Where are the rich going? And for that I actually have an interesting article, because there are 5 countries that specifically UK millionaires tend to relocate to, and those are, first of all, the UAE, but also Switzerland, Italy, Cyprus, and further destinations like Monaco, for example, and also Malta are very popular because it is within reach. It is not too far away, like let's say Singapore, for example, and you have the benefits of low taxes there, more safety, and a better quality of life. And if we look at the data from Henley and Partners, which do an amazing job for wealth migration reports, especially in 2025, they were the ones that published the numbers that we discussed earlier with the 16.5k millionaires that left the UK, and they just published their 2026 first version of wealth migration. And here we see, very interesting, at spot number 4 worldwide, we have Cyprus. This means that Cyprus is now officially the 4th most popular destination for millionaires and wealthy people in the world, and number 1 within the EU. And those are reports by Visual Capitalist and many other trusted sources that you can look up yourself. And the reasons for that are pretty clear. In my eyes, Cyprus is currently one of the best premium jurisdictions out there, especially for British individuals and entrepreneurs. Why? Because we have the Nondom status. 17 years, you are guaranteed to pay 0% tax on your dividend and interest income, 0% tax on capital gains, and 0% inheritance tax. And as I said, you are guaranteed for that with a literal physical document certified by the tax department here in Cyprus and approved by the EU. And in addition to that, you have the fastest path to residency with a tax residency certificate in just 60 days, which is among the fastest in the world. Meaning, if you come to Cyprus, after 2 months, we can already issue your tax residency certificate, which you can then present to the HMRC in the UK, which is necessary to prove that you're actually relocating and cutting ties with your home country. Also, other countries like Netherlands, for example, they actually demand such a certificate. So just be assured that we can get it for you in just 2 months. And in general, Cyprus is an established and stable environment where you can do your business and where you can raise a family, where you can live a peaceful life and still feel at home, because everyone speaks English everywhere here. We have the common law. Cyprus is an ex-British colony. We literally drive on the same side as the Brits. And even though the UK left the EU since Brexit, it is harder for British nationals to live within Europe. However, Cyprus offers the permanent residency by investment program where your whole family can get the PR card when you buy an off-plan property of at least 300,000 euros. And once you and your family hold the PR card, then you will also get access to Schengen, because Cyprus is actually in the final stage of finally joining Schengen. So if we compare the UK with Cyprus side by side, we have literally everything the UK removed, guaranteed by the Cyprus government and tax department. Not even mentioning the amazing lifestyle, food, safety, the beaches, cleanest seawaters in the EU, and cheap properties with sea views. And that is exactly why we say that Cyprus is a future-proof haven for wealth and family. And when relocating to Cyprus, you don't need to worry about the wealth that you have built. No, you can secure your legacy in a stable, English-speaking and tax-efficient EU jurisdiction with a strong banking system. And that leads finally to your individual exit strategy. And for that, remember that the UK tax year ends on April 5th, which means that by then we need to make sure that you have a clean cut. For that, the next steps are to get your Cyprus company and bank accounts in place as fast as possible so that you can already start issuing invoices under your Cyprus entity under the low 15% corporate tax of Cyprus. And even if you don't move to Cyprus yet, you can still use and operate this Cyprus company because you have the intention to relocate here very soon. Then in January until March, shortly before the tax calendar in the UK ends, you should come to Cyprus, take a look at the cities, find a property, find schools for your kids, and make sure to already build ties within the Cyprus jurisdiction. That means cut the ties in your home country, cancel all memberships, sell everything you own, and ideally ideally buy a property here in Cyprus for your PR. And then on April 6th, you will be legally a non-resident of the UK, and we will make sure to get your Cyprus tax residency certificate as fast as possible. And in order to achieve that, 8 months are definitely enough if you start now. And then lastly, it is very important for your ongoing life to make sure to never trigger the statutory residence test of the UK. It is quite a complex thing. There is an article by KPMG which explains what ties in the UK actually means and what you need to do in order to not trigger tax residency in the UK. Even if you don't physically spend a lot of time there, you need to know exactly how many days you will spend in the UK ongoing from April 6th, this and that. So your UK physical days are actually and physically counted, which means you need to plan them, especially in the first few years after leaving. And I hope you understand now what I mean by the UK is collapsing and you need to leave as fast as possible, because this is not a front against the UK at all. I go to London for business once, twice a year, and I enjoy my time there, but I could never see myself living there, raising a family there and paying taxes there. So if you're interested in working with us, tax.one handles the entire process. Just go to the website, literally tax.one, fill out the form, and you will get an individual consultation call with us, and then you just have to book the flights and we will do everything else.